Hello, everyone. Hey, if you make YouTube videos or any kind of videos, really, you might want to create a folder for all of your videos on your computer. You see, I deleted some of mine, some of my old ones, to make room, I don't know, just to get rid of them. And you know what? It was brought to my attention that I had a mistake on one of them, the one for nouns, adjectives, adverbs, clauses and phrases. The problem was a spelling mistake I had made in the background, my presentation. So if I had kept the video, then it would be easy for me to go back and make the correction. It was just a spelling mistake. It'd be easy to fix it and then just, resubmit it. As it is, since I deleted it, I had to re-record the whole thing. I did have the script and the PowerPoint, but I just have to redo it all. So that's what I'm doing right now. So here's my updated and corrected video. This time I'll be sure to save this on my computer. So if there's a problem, later in the future, I won't have to re-record the whole thing. So let's get going. This video is in response to a request from Abdul Kabir, who asked me to make a video about noun phrases and clauses, adjective phrases and clauses, and adverb phrases and clauses. For those of you who have commented on this video, I hate to see them wiped out, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen, when I switch videos. If you have any unanswered comments, though, please make them again. I think I've answered everything that was asked of me, but I do make mistakes, as I've proven by having to make this video again. Oh, and thank you for correcting me to the person who pointed out my mistake. I try to make these without mistakes, but I'm only human. So let's get started. First, I want you to be very clear about the differences between any phrases and clauses. These terms confuse many people. I'll start with phrases. What is a phrase anyway? A phrase is simply a group of words that work together to bring meaning to a sentence. They don't contain verbs. They can be used as nouns, adjectives, or adverbs, and they can be just two words, or they can have several. Okay, that's easy enough. What about clauses? What are they and how are they different from phrases? Remember I said that a phrase can't have a verb in it? Well, a clause must have a verb, but that's not all. A clause has to have a subject and a verb. In fact, all correct sentences have a subject and a verb, right? Well, all correct sentences are actually clauses. But not all clauses are sentences. Don't get confused, I'll explain. There are two types of clauses, independent and dependent. An independent clause is a sentence, or it could be. A dependent clause cannot be. I would go into the differences between independent and dependent clauses, but that's not the topic of this lesson, and it's a whole lesson in itself. Let's get back to noun, adjective, and adverb clauses and phrases. I'll start with noun phrases and clauses. First, I'll talk about noun phrases. A noun phrase is just a group of words that act as a noun. We can use these as a subject or an object of a sentence or a clause. And modifiers, such as articles or adjectives, can come before or after the actual noun. I think you know what a noun is. It's a word that is a person, place, or thing, or an animal. If I say the word cat, I'm using a noun, obviously. But if I say a cat, or the cat, I'm using a noun phrase. I could also say the gray cat with the hat and red claws, and that's still a noun phrase. Let's take a look at noun clauses. Like noun phrases, a noun clause is a group of words that function as a noun. They can also be used as the subject or object of a sentence. Unlike noun phrases, though, A noun clause must have both a subject and a verb. Let's do a comparison so you can see what this looks like. Take this cat, for example. I already said that a noun phrase could be the gray cat. We could use that in a sentence like, the gray cat is wearing a pink hat. The gray cat is the subject of the sentence, and it's a noun phrase. Got it? If we say, what the gray cat is wearing is a pink hat, we've added a noun clause, which is what the gray cat is wearing. All of that is the subject of the sentence. Notice that in this noun clause, we have a subject and a verb. That's how we know it's a noun clause instead of a noun phrase. You can see that clauses are more complicated than phrases. Let's look at adjective phrases and clauses. I'm sure you know what an adjective is. It's a word that describes a noun, pronoun, or another adjective. Like when I was talking about the cat, I said it was a gray cat. Gray is an adjective. It tells us something about the cat. So an adjective phrase is just a group of words that describe a noun, a pronoun, or other adjectives. Let's look at some examples. First, the cat has unusual yellow eyes. The words for colors are always going to be adjectives, just like when I talked about the gray cat. So yellow is an adjective, but so is unusual. The cat's eyes are yellow, and they are also unusual. I don't know, maybe you know a cat with eyes like this. Just go with it for the sake of grammar, okay? The point is that unusual yellow is our adjective phrase, and it's describing a noun, eyes. It's more than one word, and it's functioning as an adjective. This is a simple adjective phrase. There are types I should mention, participial phrases and prepositional phrases. First, I'll talk about participial phrases. These are the ones that have some kind of participle in them. It could be a present participle, which is the one that has an ing at the end of a verb. When we use these as verbs, they're used in the progressive or continuous verbs. For example, the boy is walking his dog. Here, walking is a present participle. But by putting is in front, it's the present progressive form of that verb, walk. They can also be used as gerunds, which are words that look like verbs, but they're used as nouns. You know, like walking is good for you. In this sentence, walking is the subject. This is a type of adjective phrase. For example, the man walking on the sidewalk is my dad. The adjective phrase is walking on the sidewalk. It describes the man, which is a noun phrase, so it's an adjective. It has more than one word. It doesn't have a subject and a verb, so it's not a clause. Walking is a gerund here. So walking on the sidewalk is an adjective phrase. Another example is, the girl eating a donut is my friend. Can you tell me what the adjective phrase is here? It's eating a donut. It tells me which girl I'm talking about. The girl eating a donut. Okay, those are adjective phrases using participles. Let's take a look at prepositional phrases that act as adjective phrases. Remember that a prepositional phrase is a phrase that begins with a preposition in front of a noun. For example, about World War II. About is our preposition, and World War II is our noun. So how can this be used as an adjective phrase? I'll show you. Here's a sentence that uses the same phrase. I saw a great movie about World War II. About World War II is an adjective phrase that describes the noun movie. Does that make sense? I hope so. We need to move on to adjective clauses. The first thing to remember is that it's more common for us to refer to adjective clauses as relative clauses. Some grammar books don't even have any information about adjective clauses. Well, they don't use that name. They refer to them as relative clauses. I could go through all the rules and ways we use relative clauses or adjective clauses, but I actually already have a video all about relative clauses. If you don't understand about relative clauses, go watch that video and let me know if you still have questions about that. You can respond in the comments here, but sometimes I don't see all the comments, so I can't respond to you. I've created a new email address just for you. Feel free to write to me with any questions you might have. My new email address is alexeselworld@gmail.com. Now let's have a look at adverb phrases and clauses. First, adverb phrases. As you probably know, an adverb can modify or describe a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Adverb phrases can be one or more words. The word or group of words act as adverbs. Let's have a look first at how we form adverb phrases. I'll do that by showing you some examples. If I say the weather today is extremely hot, here our adverb is extremely. You might notice that extremely is describing how hot the weather is, and you know that hot is not a verb. That's true. Adverbs can modify verbs, other adverbs, and adjectives. Hot is an adjective, so extremely is an adverb. But wait, weren't we going to talk about adverb phrases? Yes, put together extremely and hot becomes the adverb phrase. Extremely hot. Another example is our vacation flew by very quickly. When we talk about time flying by, it means it goes fast. It's an idiom. Here you can see that we have two adverbs, quickly and very. Very describes quickly, and quickly describes flew, which is the verb. It tells you something about the vacation, flew. And very tells you how quickly the vacation flew. You can put an adverb phrase anywhere in the sentence, at the beginning, like, luckily for us, we didn't have to wait long for the bus. This sentence begins with an adverb phrase, luckily for us. Here, luckily is an adverb, and it's followed by a prepositional phrase, for us. Prepositional phrases can be part of an adverb phrase. In fact, a prepositional phrase alone can be used as an adjective phrase. An adverb phrase can be found in the middle of the sentence, like in this example, I seldom go to the theater. Our adverb here is seldom. Usually we put these adverb phrases either at the beginning of the sentence or at the end, but as you can see, they really can go in any part of the sentence. So let's look at one at the end of the sentence. Professor Jones was speaking quite loudly today. Our adverb phrase here is quite loudly today. Okay, now you know where you can put them. Let's look at what their functions can be. Adverbs generally answer the questions how, for example, surprisingly well, in total silence, often under duress, very carefully, and quite easily. They can also express where in phrases such as near the edge, through the looking glass, over the rainbow, by the mailbox, and around the sun. They can describe why in such phrases as to understand better, for pity's sake, or where I come from, we said, for Pete's sake. Another example is to make the most of it, and finally, to end discrimination. Okay, those are three common ways to use adverb phrases, but there's more. Adverb phrases also describe when. Here are some examples of how we use them this way. As quickly as possible, anytime, yesterday afternoon, after a few minutes, and never at midnight. Okay, let's move on to our final section, adverb clauses. By now, I expect you know that a clause is a group of words that has meaning and that contains both a subject and a verb. I'm going to explain adverb clauses a little differently. This time I'm going to show you the different types of adverb clauses and how we use them. The first is adverb clauses of time. These clauses begin with a time word or phrase like when, whenever, as long as soon as, and so on. As means when or while something is or was happening. One more that has a little different implication is just as. It means something happened at exactly the same time that something else happened. For example, As I was leaving my house, I ran into the mail carrier. This doesn't mean I actually ran into him. It's another idiom, and it means I saw him. And he saw me, and it was a surprise. Maybe he had been on vacation. I don't know. When we use just as, it means something happened at exactly the same time that something else happened. Like, my phone rang just as I was leaving my house. Then there's as long as. This means from the beginning to the end of something. For example, I'll never forget that day as long as I live. Whenever means anytime or every time. For example, whenever I hear the garage door open, I know my husband is home from work. Remember that time clauses can come before or after the main clause. It's a dependent clause, so when it comes first in a sentence, you have to put a comma after it. Next, adverb clauses of contrast. These begin with although, even though, and though. When we use these, we're communicating something unexpected or surprising. I'll give you some examples. Although Anna studied a lot, she was nervous about taking the test. Even though she loves him, she's not going to marry him. Poor guy. Though I slept well last night, I'm feeling tired this morning. Here are a couple of tips for using these. First, even though shows more contrast than though. It's stronger. Also, though is more common in informal English. Don't use but in sentences with although, even though, and though. And use a comma after the adverb clause when it comes first in the sentence. Next, adverb clauses of reason and purpose. We use these to show reasons. The adverbs because and since are used this way, but don't get confused with since. It can also refer to time. Because I came late, I missed the beginning of the movie. Since we're running late, let's take a taxi. We can also use now that to show a reason for something. For example, now that I'm retired, I can do the things I didn't have time for before. This is true. It means because of something, now something else. Does that make sense? Oh, one more thing. If I use so that, I'm talking about a purpose. In order to do this or that, like I wear reading glasses so that I can see what I'm reading. Finally, modal verbs such as can, could, or would are often used with so that. Okay, so that's the basics of adverb clauses, but there's one more thing I should mention, and it's reduced adverb clauses. What is that, you might ask? It's just what it sounds like. There are times when you can shorten your adverb clauses. Let me briefly show you what I mean. An adverb clause of time can be shortened or reduced when the subject of the adverb clause and the subject of the main clause are the same. To reduce an adverb clause of time, omit the subject in the adverb clause and use the ing or present participle form of the verb. For example, I could say, I always have a cup of coffee before I go to work. Or I could shorten that by saying, I always have a cup of coffee before going to work. They mean the same thing, and both are grammatically correct. When an adverb clause of time is in the progressive, you want to omit the subject and the auxiliary verb be and use the ing form of the verb. I'll show you what I mean. I got tired while I was riding my bicycle. Or I can shorten it to, I got tired while riding my bicycle. They work equally as well. This works also when you use other adverbs of time, such as those beginning with after, before, since, and while. After seeing me bake a cake, Catherine could do it too. Let me remind you that this only works when the subject in both clauses is the same. It doesn't work if they're not. For example, after the dog barked, I opened the door. I can't shorten it to, after barking, I opened the door. If I said that, it means that I'm barking, not the dog. So be sure your subjects are the same before you try to shorten your adverb clause of time. Okay, the last one I'm going to tell you about today is the reduced adverb clauses of reason. In many cases, an adverb clause of reason can be reduced by omitting the subject and omitting because or since. Then change the verb to the ing form. So if you have a sentence like, because she is an only child, she's often lonely, you can take away because and the subject, which is she, and use the ing form of the verb be. You're left with, being an only child, she is often lonely. Now, if your sentence has an adverb clause of reason in the present perfect or past perfect, just change have or had to having. For example, since she has spent all her money, she needs more. This would become, having spent all her money, she needs more. Likewise, if your sentence is in the past perfect, it would be, since she had spent all her money, she needed more. It becomes, having spent all her money, she needed more. Have I completely confused you? I hope not. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to put this together, but I do have many other projects that I'm working on, and I had to do a good bit of research, so I'd be sure not to leave anything out. This is a long video in answer to a long request. I'll be happy to hear from anyone who needs help, but I'm not doing this full time, so it might take me a while to respond. If you write to my new email address, alexseslworld@gmail.com, I'll do my best to respond to you. Comments on the video page are great, but sometimes I'm not able to respond to you for some reason. Take care of yourselves and remember to be kind to each other. We're all part of this human family, and we can make life better for everyone just by being kind. See you next time.